Hey guys, Adam aka CS Radical here. So, there's a bit of a story going around that the WHO, the World Health Organization, is set for classifying gaming addiction as a disease. This is supposed to go into effect around June. That's the plan anyway. So I want to give my thoughts on that in a myriad of different ways. So, I guess for starters, what I guess you can consider an addiction really has to, you look no further than say what alcohol addiction is, what drug addiction really is, where it's something that impedes your life so drastically that you pretty much ruin relationships, friendships, your job opportunities, like anything like that. Especially stuff that can lead to like jail time or extreme like physical harm to yourself or something like that. That's where addiction can really come into play. I think with gaming, you kind of got to be careful with what gaming addiction is going to be as a definition, because you could say anybody who plays games 8 hours a day could be addicted, but you got to look at the bigger picture. So I think that my biggest fear is that we're not going to give gaming addiction the correct definition at first, and it's going to be a lot more broad than it needs to be. Because my fear is that, like I just said, we're going to look more at like how long somebody's playing, and not that it's ruining their life or their life and the lives around them, in the way that, say, they're basically not interacting with anybody to do so. They're basically putting themselves into financial ruin because they're not going to work because they'd rather play video games. Like, that's one thing. Because, if you want to go to the stories of, like, say, you hear about these people that gamed for, like, 30, 40 hours in an internet cafe or something like that, and then just passed out and died, that's obviously a gaming addiction. But I don't think, like, say, in my case, where I was unemployed, well, I shouldn't say unemployed, I was in, like, college, so it was more or less, any time that I had off, I would basically go home and I would just play, Xbox or whatever I was doing at the time. Like, I remember days where I was playing Destiny when it first came out, and I was just in between college and then maybe a month out from getting my next job, because I was currently job searching at that point. And I must have played Destiny like every day from basically when I woke up to when I went to sleep. But I don't consider it an addiction, because if I wanted to, I could have put it down. I still did things on the side. Like, I still played Rec League Sports, a couple days a week. I still hung out with friends once in a blue moon. But if there was no reason for me to leave the house, unless I needed to get like groceries or something like that, like, I basically just played. And that's different from what an addiction is. And like I said, my fear is you're going to get people that take it a little too broadly and start equating that addiction to something that really does not exist. What I look at it is, I feel like at one point in my life, I fell very close to being in that boat. Not as close as like what my definition really implies, but there was a good time where, a good length of time, I should say, where right just after high school and in my first round of college, where I was playing the NHL series from EA Sports, and I was playing those online with a bunch of people, and I basically avoided, like, if the friends were like, oh, let's go out and just, let's go out to the bar or something and hang out, and I was like, I'll just go home. And a lot of it was literally, like I said, just because I really wanted to play that game. Now, normally, I would say there's nothing too wrong with that. If I'm really enjoying that, and I do have friends that I play these games online with, so it's not like I'm going just to play on my own and be quiet. But the difference that I found with the NHL series, and it's a reason why I pretty much don't play them online anymore, is that I got so into them to the point that I was getting extremely brash. And I was still living in my folks' place, and every once in a while my folks would yell at me from upstairs, being like, what the hell? Like, you're being really loud there. Because I would get, and sometimes it was just because I was being loud because I was laughing or whatever else. But there were times where I get legitimately upset, where I can remember throwing my controller against the couch because I was smart, not like some people who throw it against the floor. But like, I would get visibly frustrated, but keep going, because I had to play. And I think that's where you get to that point where you can almost consider like a very minor addiction, but never to the extent of what a disease is. So that's how I kind of look at that. Do I think it needs to be classified as such? Of course, because like I said, there have been cases like someone playing 30, 40 hours at a time and just passing out and dying because they're not eating and they're not, putting any nutrition in their body, and that's what happens. So I'm not opposed to the idea. The only thing that just worries me is that it's going to be taken in a direction that does not need to be done. So for example, there is an estimation that about 20% of all ADHD diagnoses are wrong, that are misdiagnosed. And it usually equates to, they say, about almost a million kids a year are being misdiagnosed with ADHD. Because in a lot of cases, it's the doctors obviously trying to push a product. They want to, make the money off the pharmaceuticals, but a lot of it also has to do with the parents. And this is something that, I don't give a shit if you think either I'm wrong or if I'm pushing it, but at some point we have to literally take a look at things and go, are parents actually doing their job as a parent, or are they just being lazy and want something to solve the problem for them? I heard, because this story got brought up yesterday on the radio when I was listening to it, the whole gaming addiction being equated as a disease or classified as a disease by the WHO. They mentioned, like, one of the hosts mentioned, oh, I don't let my kids play any games in the house. There are no video games in the house. Now, I don't know how old the kids are. If the kids are like 2 and 4, then whatever. But if the kid's like 9 or 12 or something, it's like, dude, like, what's wrong with it? It's another thing if you said, oh, I just, I don't like video games. But, I mean, to say that, oh, we don't allow games in this house, it's like, what? It's not the fucking devil. Like, it's fine. It's okay. And again, it comes down to the case where it's like, because they mentioned how, oh, you hear, how kids, like, they're screaming from upstairs. And it's like, well, then don't let them play Call of Duty when they're fucking 10 years old. There's a good start. So I worry that because, let's be honest, there are a lot of fucking lazy parents out there that don't want to do their job and want somebody else to take care of it for them, in the way that they let their kid sit in front of a video game. They give their kid the tablet with all the silly little games, or they play YouTube on there, or they want TV shows to do the job for them. Like, at some point, my worry is that, if gaming addiction is fully classified, that there are going to be parents that think that just because their kid plays more than 2 hours a day, that they suddenly have to take them to a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever the fuck to get help that does not need to be given. And the other side of that at the same time is, how many of these therapists, psychiatrists, or medical professionals, for that matter, are actually going to tell the parent, you know what, no, there's nothing wrong? Because that there are some, like I said, with the way that ADHD is misdiagnosed. I don't think, it's by pure accident that 20% potentially of ADHD misdiagnoses are just that, an accidental misdiagnosis. A lot of them are pushing a product. And if you are trying to make, money, why would you not want to say, yeah, you're right, your kid has a gaming addiction. He needs to come and see me once a month. Here's the price. Here, write me a check. Let's go. You always have to worry about that. And my fear at the same time is there's going to be kids that get royally fucked up by this, because the parent believes that they have a gaming addiction problem, when the reality is they just like playing video games, which I don't know how many times we have to explain is not necessarily a bad thing. I've been playing games for as long as I can remember. I've been playing games since the Sega Genesis era. I remember playing Sonic the Hedgehog all the time. I remember there'd be like 2-3 hour stretches in the day. I would play Sonic 2 from front to back. And every time that I had a game over, I wouldn't just restart on the checkpoint. I would go right back to the beginning because I wanted to do it in one sitting. I was that interested. I remember one day we had a 3-day rental of the Magic School Bus on, I think it was Sega Genesis as well. It was either that or Super Nintendo. And I remember that I played that entire game in one day. And to me, it felt like a long time. Like, it must have been maybe only 6 hours, but that was unheard of for me. I would never play games that long because there's other things for me to do. Obviously, I could go play outside because I had a big backyard at the time, so I could go hit the baseball out there. I could go crazy carpeting down a hill. We had a little section just between the main living room and the deck where there's just this long, like, somewhat corridor where me and my little brother could just play mini stick hockey, and we'd do that. There were a lot of options that I had. So I remember that 6 hours straight of playing the Magic School Bus and Sega Genesis was like a big deal. Like, I'm like, holy crap, that's a long time. Fast forward to when Mass Effect 2 comes out on Xbox 360, and here I am playing like for 16 hours straight, being like, this is nothing. But I've been playing games for forever, and the fact that, all this time later, we're still looking at games like this really terrible piece of media in so many different ways now. Now, parents are still attacking it because it's ruining their children. We now have the media fucking attacking it because it's creating school shooters. And we have our own fucking games journalists saying that, it's like these games are racist or these games are sexist, or as gamers, we're all racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, transphobic, all this bullshit. It's so frightening that what I love so much is being attacked so constantly, in the way that I imagine now that metal music is slowly but surely completely off the table now. I don't really feel like anybody's talking about metal music, or even rock music for that matter, as being this satanic, violent, brash sort of thing. Like, people obviously still know about the mosh pits and black metal and death metal and all this stuff, but it's not the way that video gaming is today. And I think that's where my fear and my irrational negativity towards this subject, like gaming addiction being classified in let's say the DSM-5, for example, it worries me, even though I know that it needs to happen, because what I fear is that since we are under attack so hard right now, that all this will do is give parents, give politicians, give teachers, give medical professionals, give, religious, crazy motherfucking idiots that don't know what they're talking about. Basically, for that matter, anybody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Just another excuse to scapegoat video games for the next problem that's happening out there. So you guys let me know what you think about that, because it's a really interesting subject, and one that I actually think has a lot of positive and negative, parts to each side. So let me know in the comments what you think about this. Should gaming addiction be classified by the WHO? What reasons do you have that you think that it's a good thing? What do you fear might happen? Because, obviously anything can be taken advantage of when it comes to a medical condition, in terms of drugs that need to be issued, in terms of money that needs to be thrown for therapy. Like, there's a lot of stuff out there. So anyways, thanks for watching again, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content, and I will see you next time.